In this video, I'm going to go ahead and take a look at Pixie, who you guys might know. I helped him get 5th in Grands a couple of seasons ago. That's his very first ever Grands, basically a massive upcomer. And he's just managed to win this 20k cup and net himself about 7.7k or something ridiculous. And his game history is really impressive. He won a game, and this is the main game we're going to take a look at, as well as he was 2nd place in this game. There's a lot of things you guys can learn from this, as well as a lot of advanced strategies that Pixie is doing. Alright, for Pixie, he's gone ahead and landed at Breakwater Bay, and you guys need to get out of your minds. You need to be landing at some god spot to get earnings in solos. You can very easily win games like Pixie does here from landing at a spot that isn't crazy OP. You don't really need to get forecast towers. You definitely don't need to get a vault. You probably don't need to get island. The only thing that really matters is being on corner spawn, getting good mats, and then trying to get your cash. Pixie here as well, as he realizes that somebody's just fought in this nearby area, and instead of pushing straight over and trying to go for a full-on fight, instead he just positions well. He hides behind this area that you can't build in, and he's going to go ahead and wait for the other player to come towards him. But now, as he gets closer, hits the 99 tag, gets the full box on him, and takes him out. You guys need to stop trying to go full W key and trying to fight people. Instead, just position well, outthink what they're going to do, and you're going to be easily able to get elims. And it's definitely worth doing something like that in a victory finals, because of course now he's got cap mats, he's got extra bigs, and he's in a perfect position to just play this game out. And he's got a little bit of surge since this is a pretty stacked tournament. Something very important that Pixie does after getting that kill is he doubles back into Storm to just continue and finish looting his POI. He makes sure that he gets all of the extra metal that he can get. He pops some extra barrels so he gets more whites back. And also he goes ahead and throws a medkit in. This is really important just because of the fact that he's now allowing time for other players to rotate, especially in this sort of stacked game that he's playing here of the 20k cup finals. Throws that medkit and pops it, and then as you can see, he's allowed time for all these other players in, let's say, Shady or towards Eclipse Estate to rotate into zone, and he is now able to go ahead and rotate in late with only one player nearby. I'd always recommend tanking Storm early when it's only a 1 tick if you can, because of the fact that you're going to get much freer rotates later on. As you can see, waste a little bit of wood, able to refarm it all completely back, and just have a really easy rotate into the next zone and get ready for his cash to spawn. Now as we get the 2nd zone into 3rd zone closing, this is when Pixie's cash shows up, and because of the fact that he was tanking Storm earlier and he's only just come out of Storm on edge, it means he gets a far cash. It's going to be linked to somebody else who also gets a far cash. So what he goes ahead and does is just white line straight to it, as you can see here. I'd always recommend that you try to carry some type of slap so you have some mobility that you can get to your cash as quick as possible, just in case somebody else races you to it. But when you get a far cash like this and you just get a free rotate, you can see goes through rumble, he makes sure nobody's able to see him as he does this rotate. He's able to basically get into his cash, builds a whole load of metal on it to make sure he doesn't get fought by somebody else, and now he gets it completely free and does the rest of his augments at this point in time. Now the optimal loadout this season after you get your cash is going to be this. So what you want to go ahead and do is carry bigs plus slurps as your only 2 heals, and then 1 mobility item, which is of course going to be the rocket ram the majority of the time. If you can't get a rocket ram, you can carry slaps, but this is pretty much the best loadout. The reason you don't want to carry minis is because pretty much everybody you kill later in the game is going to have minis, and it means that you're only limited on 150 HP unless you go ahead and waste a slurp early, which you don't want to do. Carry those bigs for when you get tagged up and you can get yourself back up to full HP. Also, for your swap weapon, I'd highly recommend taking a combat SMG at this point in time. Unless you're in a stat game that needs surge, drop your twin mag AR, just because it is useful for getting kills and people rocketing good beams, and if you need surge, it's very good to carry as well. But the combat SMG is just too good. You can get bleed through damage, you can get kills through walls, and it's just the best gun to jump in box with this season. Alright, so after Pixie's got the best loadout you can have for W King this season, what does he go ahead and do? First of all is he's rotating and he's mirroring this other player as they come into the zone, and what he does is hit the mushrooms. Since whenever you do these mushrooms, you don't show up on visual audio at all. So Blackshark in this 20k cup has absolutely no awareness of where Pixie is. Pixie gets his free shot, and what does Pixie do? Is he pressures the front wall, so Blackshark's now going to build his box and turn to hold the front wall, and where has Pixie gone? He's swapped angle and able to get the wall on the side. Immediately swaps angle, but he doesn't keep on pressuring from this wall. Instead, he goes ahead again, swaps his angle, goes over the head of Blackshark. Now Blackshark's holding the wall this way, thinking he's going to come from this direction, and what's Pixie done? Grabbed his floor through his cone, gone ahead and double pickaxe replaced. Blackshark's left there, getting pieced up, dies to third party, and now Slove is ready to get pieced up. Slove gets cracked by the third party, and this is why you guys need to carry the combat SMG, just because of these situations when you're in box versus somebody. Pixie again swaps angle. Slove is the correct thing, which is to go inside a cone to get a slurp off, but he's not able to do it quite in time Pixie comes straight on the wall, grabs it, and then keeps on SMG pressuring through. At no point here on this fight versus Slow who's cracked has he used his pickaxe. Instead, he's just been SMGing non-stop, gets the bleed through damage, which is of course how broken the combat SMG is, and then now he's in such a good position to do well this game because he gets extra slurps as well as a breach shotgun from those W keys. So after getting these kills, Pixie realizes he's got extra heals available to him, so he's going to throw them ahead on his rotate. You guys can do this whenever you have like extra bigs or extra minis from a cache. Just throw them forward. Do be aware of the fact that whenever you're throwing loot forward, people know what you're doing and they're probably just going to sit there and get ready to tank you. But in a case like this, where extra shieldfish and it's quite a difficult rotate through congested side, there's a lot of people in the way, it's probably worth doing it because as you can see, he's able to do it a couple times, refarm his mats, and then when he eventually gets tanked up in a second, he's able to save the slurps and the splashes that he's carrying and instead just pop the 2 shieldfish. Right here, we get pretty much the worst case zone for the majority of players in this lobby. It's an absolute max distance pull from 5th to 6th. Everybody isn't in the current zone, everyone has to rotate. So you can either look at this one way, which is thinking, okay, I'm going to have a very difficult rotate here, and it's going to mean that I'm going to be scuffed and I need to go for a refresh. Or you can think of it as everybody else has a difficult rotate. How can I make this as easy as possible for myself? And you've got to keep that in mind whenever it comes to rotate. So you guys have the master class, you have an advantage over other players. What I'd recommend doing in this situation is never ever try to go late. Instead, try to get an early timing rotate. So figure out what is your major threat to your rotate. And for Pixie, it's going to be the player in this house right here, as you can see. He's scouting out, he sees that there's somebody inside this house, sees their like arm poking through the wall. So he goes ahead and actually shoots them out, as you can see, just to try to initiate this player into rotating to zone. So you can see other player falls down. Now, while this other player is busy, Pixie's going to go ahead and rotate. And this is when you guys should do the rocket ram trick where you phase a cone and the rocket ram. But in this tournament, there were shockwaves in it since it was in pubs, of course. So Pixie just goes ahead and does 1 shockwave rotate. But you guys could do this exact same thing with the rocket ram. He only does this once. So he just goes ahead, goes forward, builds behind him a little bit, should probably build off his back more. And now he's got past the key major threat, which is this guy back here who was getting ready to hold him. And he's got past him. He still gets tagged in the back a little bit by him, as you can see. But he just blocks it off with wood, pops the slap splash, and then keeps on running. You guys need to not stop running when you can and whenever it's free, right? Unless you're getting shot at and you're getting held, you shouldn't stop. Instead, just keep on moving as fast as possible. You can see it's exactly what Pixie does. Gets a little bit of a refarm as he comes into zone, and very crucially here, he made a really good decision. I don't know if you guys noticed that. Instead of running along this left-hand side, where he'd be open to all of this back space right here, with a lot of players rotating, instead, he's just white lining it straight into zone. He's gone around the right, which means that his angles are a lot more blocked off and he's using line of sight a lot more. So you can see he's getting a nice rotate in, able to refarm his wood a little bit as well as he comes in. Nobody else around him because he's just going straight in. It's really important you guys are aware that you shouldn't be running around the edge of zone. And if you can, just white line it straight in. You should always try to do that. That's exactly what he does here. Pops another splash as this one starts to run out. And then now he's able to get in basically completely for free into the end zone and refarm his mats at the same time. Always just keep in mind that other players have a difficult rotate, so you need to try to make it as easy as possible for yourself by going early and using line of sight where possible, blocking off angles of wood. After the rest of his rotate, Pixie makes a really good decision here as he comes into zone, is not stopping on the very edge of zone as he gets in. So many players would like box right here as they get into zone, which is what 3 players have already done, and you want to make sure you avoid doing things like this. Instead, he spots there's nobody that can actually directly shoot him as he mantles over this roof, and he sprints and he gets away from these other players, gets more towards the center of zone, as you can see. He boxes up right here in metal, so he doesn't get sprayed by anybody. And then now he's away from these 3 players that could potentially box fight him or could shoot him as he's refarming. And now he's a little bit more isolated. And he only has to worry about this 1 player behind him. And he has a lot more freedom to rotate quickly and on foot. If he pulls south here, he can run through the house and get a little bit of the rotate done. Luckily, however, he realizes that he actually pulls zone. So very nicely, once he pulls zone, as he stops being active, he stops shooting people, and instead he decides, okay, let me go ahead and refarm mats a little bit. And also he makes a very good decision to actually build a base below his base. This is really good. It's only 5 metal builds, but it's basically just like a safeguarding to make sure he's more secure in case somebody rockets into him, or in case somebody hits him to low HP. He has a bit of extra room in full built metal later on where he can get a slurp off if needed. It's really important you guys do small things like this to make sure you stay stacked. There's no reason to be sitting and spraying and trying to wall replace people and taking damage. Instead, just sit in your box, play nice and passive, and wait for the next zone to show up and get information on other players around you. One of the most important skills, in my opinion, for solos is just the ability to slow down what you're doing, get information, and go ahead and figure out what your next rotate is for any different option. I've done a video on this in the past. I call it the OOP to loop. It basically just helps with decision making. So right now, in the last 20 seconds of this zone closing in, Pixie hasn't done anything. Instead, he's just sat here getting information, preparing how he's going to rotate. So this is 5th zone going into 6th zone right now. And of course, Pixie, instead of even thinking, he just already has a plan and he's able to go ahead and execute that plan. He runs to zone, he farms up a little bit of his wood as he goes to zone, and now he's able to get into zone completely for free and actually get to a really good advanced position, and he ends up getting to this hill. He does the exact same thing later on 7th zone, so you can see here he's in a pretty good position and he thinks about early rotating, right? However, as he comes out of his box, he realizes there's a couple boxes over here that he didn't really spot because he didn't have line of sight on it. So what does he do? He instantly changes his plan, goes back into his box, and then starts getting information on what is in front of him and what could be potential threat on his rotate. He sprays out these walls here to check nobody's in them. After doing this, he realizes, okay, this rotate does actually look pretty good. Let me go ahead and go back to my original plan after making sure it's safe, and he's able to continue rotating it. Right here, he gets tagged up, and instead of forcing the rotate and keep on trying to get in, instead he just boxes up in a 2x1 down on low ground. He's going to wait for some other players to go ahead and rotate for him, ahead of him, and also for that other player that was tagging him to forget about him. Also at this point in time, especially if you're stacked, it's a good idea to just waste a big before you rotate, right? He did it earlier. Just pop a big just to make sure you're as healthy as possible if you still have extra bigs. Now as we get to 8th zone, Pixie is again early rotating and he's trying to cover as much distance as possible on foot. As you can see here, he blocks off his back with wood, as you can see. Then as he gets into this position here, he spots there's a few players. There's one player right here who might be looking trying to shoot him. There's a player in front of him who's opening up. There's a player basically all around him. So what does he do? Instead of keep on going until he gets shot, where he's probably going to get cracked and silver sprayed, he instead boxes up nice and early. And what does he do? Looks forward instead of looking back. So many players look backside trying to get a kill. And if you do get a kill backside, like a heavy headshot or something, you're not going to go ahead and actually capitalize on that loot, and somebody else is just going to steal it. Instead, he looks front side, spots this player in wood, and gets a little bit of damage on him, as you can see. Right, it's just 60 tag. And the 60 tag there is really important because that guy is the main threat stopping Pixie's rotate. So Pixie looks up, spots that his main threat is now popping a big, and what does he do? Immediately rotates and tries to get in while his main threat is busy healing up, right? Zigzags over the cones to make sure he's harder to get seen. Goes over here. There's a really nice build combination where he's blocking off his back from everybody and sliding at the same time. Ramps up and then gets into zone, and he's the furthest in zone, and he's building in metal, and he's the first one doing it as well. Really good rotate by him. He builds a 2x1 down on low ground, and he's just going to sit nice and passively waiting for moving zones. Now this is a very nice example of how to get refreshes on 8 zones. So right here, Pixie's paused before he's going into zone. He tags the player up who's in front of him, and then as he tags the player, he knows he's going to heal and not shoot back. He decides to rotate at this exact time, and he gets into zone nice and early. You guys pretty much never want to be edge of zone in a backside positioning trying to fight for a refresh. Instead, try to get to zone early, and you can spend a lot of time, exactly like Pixie does here, getting information and looking for a kill. He also pops a big just so he's as healthy as possible in case he needs to get into box versus somebody, or if he wants to go ahead and close down a kill. And how he actually spots this refresh is really useful, because he's just jumping up and down in a cone like this and just looking around doing little 360s, and he spots a player on the wall right here, goes ahead and does a nice open top round peek, gets the spray kill, and very crucially here is he makes the loot airtight, as you can see, right? He goes ahead and builds all around the loot, gets the mats as the priority, since that's always what you should be trying to go for. And then after getting the mats, is he goes ahead and again makes the loot airtight, makes sure nobody else can steal it, so he's able to get the slurp. And then now, since the loot is still airtight, he's able to go back down and get the pump upgrade. It is so important that you guys do things like this, just blocking off all your angles as you go for loot, making sure everything is secure. It's so common, especially as we get like 30 people in 8 zone, that somebody would see this refresh and try to fight you for it. So you need to make sure all the edits are secure and the loot's completely airtight so nobody can jump you. Now as we get into first moving here, this is where Pixie makes a very good rotate, as well as he makes a small mistake. He's able to fix that small mistake just by some really heads up play. First of all is he's getting information before he rotates, and he's figuring out exactly what layer and what edge he wants to play. As you can see here, he does not want to run down the center of zone. That's going to be very bad. It's going to leave him very exposed out on the bottom of a cliff. Instead, he wants to get to a high layer on the right-hand side of zone, which is exactly what he tries to do here. So first of all, is he leaves his box by building wood ramps forwards, right? So anybody front side trying to look at him wouldn't have an angle, and he's easily able to go ahead and swap over to brick if he gets shot at. Now here, he gets up a layer, again, with these wood ramps building forwards, and then reverse ramps to get a little bit of momentum, decides that he probably wants to just get up the hill instead, and then now he gets very nicely up into this hill position. And what I think he should do here, and the small mistake that he actually did, is he probably should just pause up top here. The only issue with that is, of course, he's by a zip line, somebody can easily break him out, and it's a little bit awkward to pause on wood right here. So instead he decides to commit forward, and of course whenever this happens, people are going to land front side, and it's going to deal damage to you as well. This is why I think you should pause just before you get into zone and then sprint the rest of it afterwards. As you can see, he gets hit 100, right, from 2 people landing on him. And then again here, all of his builds get broken out as he's trying to get his slurp off. He does the correct call here, which is realizes, okay, I can't play up on this cliff where he was aiming to get to. And instead, he drops down the cliff, just plays the edge, and he's going to play to tank storm, which we'll get onto in a second here. And he does this really nicely, as he plays down here. He gets ready for zone swap, and zone ends up actually luckily pulling straight back on him, so he gets a really good pull. Now very nicely here, he just pauses, he's letting zone overtake and perhaps looking for a refresh on backside, and he does a very nice play, which is waiting for somebody else to get cracked and then just double pumping them at the same time. So it's really common, this guy didn't build his wall correctly, and as you can see, all of the mats go ahead and fall down. And instead of trying to fight this other player or try to jump down the mats down low ground, instead Pixie realizes, okay, let me just go ahead and tank storm. Let me not fight either of these players back here. And again, wood ramps up and gets himself up towards front side. And he's prioritizing getting as front side as possible, as you can see here. And then now he pauses. All right, let's go ahead and take a look at what he did in some other games for second and third moving, which is a really broken strat that I think you guys should copy. Now, one of the best strats I think you guys can do endgame during this season is tanking storm on zone switch. So this is first moving, now going into second moving. Pixie boxed up in the end of first moving pretty centrally, and then now he's going to go ahead and use his slurp to tank storm for this next rotate. Whenever you're 100 HP and you pop a slurp, it actually means that you can tank storm for an entire 25 seconds before you go down. So don't be afraid about tanking storm with slurps at this point in the game. It's only really when you're like 30 HP and you pop a slurp, that's when you need to get out quickly. So you can see here, he pops the slurp and it's now going to do 6 HP healed while he takes 10 HP a second, right? So he's only actually losing 4 HP a second, which allows him to stay in storm for 25 hold seconds. Now, the reason why this is so good is because everybody around you is going to go ahead and rocket ramp early, and you can maybe get a kill on somebody like Raisin here, who doesn't know how to rocket ramp properly, he's just doing it in the open. If you go ahead and hit a shotgun shot and then get the elim, you could easily get a refresh on a player like this. Unfortunately, it's a bit laggy, so he's able to escape, and as you can see here, Pixie goes ahead and just rotates. In this case, he uses a shockwave, but you could easily just use a rocket ramp to do this rotate. There's absolutely no difference. It's just because in this tournament, there was shockwaves. So Pixie goes ahead and shockwaves forward, and very crucially here, he doesn't stop where he lands, as you can see. Instead, he goes towards the right side of zone. So he's getting towards an edge, and he's going front side as well as he does this. So you can see he's now front side on the right-hand side of zone, which allows him to tarp in very effectively and not get looked at by too many people. Also, when you play edge zone, you're less likely for somebody to land on you with a rocket ramp versus if you're just completely front side, like Podoside did right there, where you'd be landing in the center of zone, right? Now, another major benefit about where Pixie chose to land after rotating to zone is his one-off low, right? Which means that whenever somebody dies out of the air with a rocket ram, or somebody goes ahead and dies to storm because they landed too far front side with the rocket ram, right, is you're going to go ahead and be in a really good position to spot that loot. So this 2x1 allows him a lot of edits for potential normal refresh, as well as a lot of visibility for extra loot that might fall down, which is exactly what he does here. He drops down, gets all these extra mats, builds some extra space just to make sure he's safe as well, as you can see here. And then now he's got a medkit. He's going to go ahead and tank storm with a medkit and pop it. And this is exactly when you could do the rocket ram strat again. Imagine he had a rocket ram in this situation. He would have gone ahead and rotated from backside up to front side, and then tank again, storm to go ahead and pop either a medkit or a slurp in this case, and then go ahead and rocket ram towards front side normally. Right here, you would again get another refresh from somebody using a rocket ram correctly, Bloomy doing it in the open and getting taken out. But he realizes, okay, I don't want to spend too much time in storm. He's run out of slurps and he's only got splashes at this point. So he wants to go ahead and get in. What's the easiest way to get in is going up to a high layer like he does here, and going ahead and actually just tarping regularly. He does a really cheap, effective tarp to block off his angles, and now he's in a pretty good position as well to potentially play for height later because he's on a high layer. But instead, he just prioritizes getting into the end zone, and very nicely here, spots even more loot over backside of Storm like this. He's able to claim it and pop that med kit that was on the floor right there. Now, as we get final moving here, Pixie is on absolutely flat 0 builds. He does the correct thing, which is hiding behind this stair, trying to fight something on the backside. But as you can see, this guy just fell down, so he misses this refresh. And now he's on 0 builds running around. And how do you guys recover a situation like this? A lot of times, I see people 0 mats just try to force their way into the box, which honestly is the wrong thing to do. Instead, you want to keep just sprinting around, make it hard for you to take damage, right? And try to look for opportunities where you can maybe hop in for free. Like right there, he almost was able to hop into that guy's box, but instead he decides to just keep on sprinting around. Just keep your pump out, keep moving around, act like you're full HP, right? And as you can see, he's able to just sprint around long enough to put himself in this nice position on front side as zone swaps. Now he gets into this full box, he's able to get a mini and a big off, so he's healthy enough to take a fight, and he perfectly plays this next fight. He doesn't want to try to force a refresh where he'd have to grab a wall. Instead, he wants to wait for somebody else to go for a refresh. Exactly what he does here. He spots Cammy going ahead and actually getting a refresh on backside. He plays the right and peak. He plays his white HP back in Storm, so he tanks Storm to do this. Takes out Cammy. Really smart. He realizes that Cammy just got a refresh. So he turns around, gets around 300 mats from that. And then now, what does he do with these 300 mats? Doesn't overcomplicate it. He doesn't use the rocket that he picked up. Instead, he goes ahead and just full tarps with wood. Just really effective, safe tarping, sliding, and then gets himself into this nice position in the 2x1 on the backside. It's a really important build technique to do when you get in the end zone. It's this backward stair, so you can look back in case somebody's coming through your tarp, as well as the fact that he's got these floors here where he can look for somebody if they were fighting down on low ground. So you can see he starts looking around in his edits. He does not overcommit to a single shot here though, as you can see. Instead, he wants to make sure that he uses his last remaining builds getting front side, and that is so important in these final zones, is don't try to force a refresh just yet. Now is the only time he's going to force a refresh, as he catches somebody with a pickaxe on his wall, takes them out, covers, makes sure the loot is completely airtight, picks up all the mats, and then now keeps on rotating front side. There really isn't too much of a benefit of actually getting kills yourself because there's no siphon in these cups anymore. So what you guys need to do in situations like this, top 3 situation, right, is go ahead and try to let the player on height do the work for you. So he's got 2 boxes here. He's going to go ahead and just hold his wall, wait for the player on height to do the work. So the player on height takes him out, and as you can see, gets the mats, and now he's left into this 1v1. And honestly, this 1v1 could have come down either way. He gets a nice 70 tag, and then finally here, if he had 1 build, or if he maybe had a heavy shot going down on low ground, he could have won this. But the other player on height played it pretty well and instantly took the peak, knowing they had the HP advantage. In the other game, Pixie did this exact same strategy where he would just play his mats down on low ground, put himself in a 1v1, and it came down to just 1 shotgun shot difference at the end between him losing this game and him winning the previous game.